Hi there. I actually just spent the last 10 minutes doing this recording and then realised that sound wasn't working. So here I go again. I've been talking and also thinking recently about beauty and the idea of beauty and what it is to be beautiful and what it is to feel beautiful. And I think that it's inherent and it is within every one of us to desire that and to want that. But I also think that that comes from a very primal space in ourselves and the primal urge to find a mate, procreate, evolve, be attractive, attract a mate. It's in the animal kingdom, so why shouldn't it exist with the human species? And of course it does. But I think there are very mixed ideas about what it is to be beautiful, what it is to feel beautiful, what it is we're striving for, who are we doing it for, who are we comparing ourselves to, and on and on and on the questions go. So in my work as a hair and makeup artist, obviously, making people look good has been a really big part of what I do. But another very important part of what I do is actually making people feel good. And one thing that I strive for is that, to make people feel good. So when I'm making somebody up, I'm very mindful not to use dialogue like, oh, you have beautiful hair, or gee, you've got long eyelashes, or wow, you've got great teeth, or gee, you've got a nice skin, or a great jawline, or good bone structure, or blah, and on and on and on it can go. Rather, I try really hard to actually pick up on the personality traits. So if somebody's in conversation with me, I say things like, oh gee, that's a really great observation you made, or I like your viewpoint, or you're very interested in that subject, that's great. And actually it can evolve the conversation into thinking and talking about things that are more actually important to somebody rather than this face and hair and all that sort of stuff. So interestingly enough, I heard a report this morning that said that children as young as 3 were having self-image problems, and I was gobsmacked and I wondered where that was coming from. And then the questions arose about, how can we help them and how do we detect the early warning signs? And instantly I just thought, well, isn't the parent the early warning sign? I think as parents we have a responsibility and also a duty of care to be very mindful of the dialogue that we use around children. I remember some time ago doing a job where the mother was talking about how her 4 or 5-year-old was really into doing makeup, and she could do all these different things, and she was contouring and this and that. And I said, well, how does she know how to do this stuff? And she said, oh, she watches it on YouTube. And it was a very casual kind of remark, and I really paid attention because in myself I just thought, wow, that's very young to be exposed to that world. And why does a child of that age need to know anything about makeup? I think it sets them up for future failure in terms of how they feel, because they're basing their childhood and that time where we need to play and discover and use our imagination on everything about what you look like. And there's plenty of time in the world to be focusing on that sort of stuff. So I think that parents have a really big responsibility, and being mindful of the wording that we use around young people and even with ourselves, because I hear all the time, I heard a mother at a primary school the other day saying, oh, after I had my last baby, I was just fat and ugly. And I thought, oh, gee, that's really quite sad in a way, that's the first thing she thought of to describe how she felt after she had her baby, rather than focusing on, I bet you she felt elated and in love and, in total joy and bliss with the child she'd just given birth to, but rather she was focusing on those physical attributes. And I think that in our society, it's almost like it's an expectation that that's what we talk about. We talk about the way we look. We talk about, oh, I don't like my hair, or I wish I had this, or I wish I was taller, or I wish I was thinner, or I wish I had bigger eyes, or, I wish my teeth were straighter, and on and on and on the list goes. And I hear it all the time. Because the one thing as a makeup artist, when you get very close to somebody, it actually triggers them into their stuff, and the first thing they think about talking about is what they look like. So I think it's really important, especially in this day and age of pressure and social media and all those things that we actually put on ourselves. There's nobody out in the world actually putting these pressures on us. We do it to ourselves. To take responsibility for the words that come from our own mouths, to listen to the self-degrading comments that we make of ourselves, and think about how we're saying that stuff sometimes very subconsciously and around our children. And our children are actually hearing these things. We all have different backgrounds. We all come from different situations, some very distressing, some very loving, and they're all very different, and they all help define who we are. But for a really large majority of people who come from a fairly privileged background, to grow up hearing your mother say, oh, I won't eat that, that's a bad food, I'm not going to have that, and continually put labels on stuff and continually talk about how, that's going to be bad for me or that's good for me, rather than just being in it and being very conscious about the way we talk about stuff. Because it's interesting when I work with people and I try not to focus on their physical attributes and actually talk about who they are. It opens up a whole lot of dialogue, and it actually opens up an opportunity for people to focus on who they are. Because I can tell you right now that a lot of the people I come across in the world of my job, and having that time to actually be very close to them and be very interested in who they are and what they've got to say in the world, there's some remarkable attributes that people hold within themselves. The ability to be patient, the ability to be free thinking, the ability to explore, use their imagination. It goes on and on and on. And I think that those attributes are much more important than actually what's going on out here. Finding a really good, strong self-identity in yourself actually starts in childhood. And as a parent, we have a responsibility to help form this really strong self-worth and strong self-identity, so that we are producing young people who are free-thinking, who won't be scared to think differently or go outside the crowd or not follow popular culture and not be a slave to what they think society is telling them to be. Because we don't all have to look the same. We don't all have to wear makeup. We don't all have to follow trends. We don't have to follow what's fashionable. We don't have to follow what the masses are doing. In fact, the movers and the shakers of the world were the people who were renegades. They thought outside the box. They were different in every way. And the differences need to be embraced and celebrated. So if your child shows some remarkable behaviour that might be different to, the 50 children that you think are all the same, and, because they're all the same, they're more popular, think again. Think, well, that's a really strong attribute that my child possesses, and maybe it's that I'm going to focus on and give praise to, rather than actually just pointing out, oh gee, you're pretty, or you look pretty in that, or your hair looks pretty, or and even for boys, the same thing. The way we groom, the way we dress, the way we style our children, it's all really, for a lot of people, in line with popular culture. And these are not the people who are necessarily going to make the biggest changes in the world. And if you aspire to that, if you aspire to raising children who can actually draw on their inner strengths and work with those things to build resilience and to build a breath of confidence that actually is not what popular culture is telling them to have, then we're taking the focus off the physical. We're building a foundation for children to be less likely to focus on what they look like, their body image, their hair type, their eye colour, whether they got a tan or not got a tan, whether they fit into a size 10 dress or not. It doesn't really matter what you look like, because the way you conduct yourself in the world is always going to shine through more. It's always going to be more apparent. You know, there are a lot of jobs out there that people are trying to get that are not based on what we look like. Okay, yes, nice, presentable, you know, wash your hair as often as possible. Like I can talk, I've been in bed unwell, haven't washed my hair for nearly a week. You know, there are moments when we can get away with that, but the jobs of the future, the ones that are actually going to set you apart, are not going to be image-based as much as you think they are. And I think the moment we can actually understand that focusing on our self-image does nothing to our self-confidence but harm it, I think that we'll understand what true self-identity and where true self-identity comes from in the first place. So a little exercise, have a look in the mirror. Just look at yourself in the mirror and observe what comes up for you. Observe what comments are coming up first. Are you looking at your physical attributes? Are you focusing on those before anything else? I want you to take a moment to actually look deeper. I want you to look through the physical attributes. Don't worry about your skin, your hair, your weight, your height, none of those things. I want you to see what you can find that comes up that is more important than those things, and focus on it. Give focus to it, give it energy, give it thought every single day. Watch how it changes the way you feel. Watch how it changes maybe the way you even talk in front of people, or the dialogue that you use in front of your children, because the tiniest little things that we degrade ourselves for, it rubs off. Our children absorb everything. So for the next 2 weeks, if you're paying attention to any of this, any of what I'm saying, I want you to try and focus really hard on those internal things, those attributes in yourself. I'm really compassionate, I'm really empathetic, I'm really understanding, I'm very patient, I'm knowledgeable, I know a lot about this particular subject. Whatever it is, something that's going on inside, find that best thing, give it energy, and let's watch what happens. Stay tuned. See ya.